It's my intro again. Hello, good morning or good evening, whenever you are watching this. I hope you are doing well. My name is Katharine, and I am so excited to be filming this video because I've had this idea like ruminating in my brain for a little bit. Today I am going to be recommending books to you that have the same vibe of certain musicals. I got my degree in theater. I've been doing theater my entire life, and I have found that a lot of theater nerds tend to be book nerds and a lot of book nerds tend to be theater nerds. I am only going to be talking about 3 musicals today. However, if you guys like this, I am totally down to make this a series. And please comment with your favorite musical, and I'll try and find some books that have like the same sort of vibe and like themes as the musical that you love. And if there are any books that you recommend that have the same sort of vibe, how many times am I gonna say vibe in this video? Please recommend them to me down below. Without further ado, let's get into it. So of course, as the world knows, 2-ish weeks ago, Hamilton was put onto Disney Plus. So a lot of people who either hadn't seen the musical or like weren't even familiar with the musical watched it and became intrigued. If you like Hamilton for the sort of historical fiction aspect of it, I suggest reading Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. I've talked about this book before, but this one actually takes place during the Civil War with a little bit of a twist on it because the Civil War gets interrupted by zombies. I have talked about this book extensively in my June reading wrap-up. It's such an interesting story, and I highly recommend it. Another great historical fiction book is The Fountain of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. Now this one actually takes place in Spain, so it takes place post the Spanish Civil War. Spain is currently under the dictatorship of General Francisco Franco. This book in particular follows Daniel, who is the son of an oil tycoon. He moves to Madrid, and there he meets Anna through his photography. He discovers that while Spain has become this like very tourist area, there are still people who are majorly suffering from the fallout of the Spanish Civil War. I didn't really know a lot about the Spanish Civil War, and it's definitely not something that's covered in like general history classes, even like world history classes in high school, at least not in my high school. What's really cool about this book is it has a lot of like quotes and actual historical facts. So it's really well like researched, and you can tell the time and research that Ruta Sepetys put into this. So that aspect definitely, I would say, relates back to like Hamilton, where it's just like, it's not historical fact in terms of like the storyline, but there's so much like research that goes into it. If you are looking for books that like take place in America but maybe in like an alternate timeline, I mean Dread Nation does that, but a little more modern. One of my absolute favorite books is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is an adult romance book, and it is about the first son of the United States as he falls in love with the Prince of Wales. It is an enemies to lovers, and it is alternate timeline because we have a female president, which would be so nice. Anyway, it's a very beautiful book. There's certain moments in the book where I like cry, it makes me laugh, it makes me just be like, I love this relationship so much. Another book kind of like along that same like vibe and line would be American Royals by Katharine McGee. This book is an alternative timeline universe type deal where what if George Washington, when the people like offered like, you should be our king, he was like, yes, I will be king now, instead of being like, no, we should have presidents and they should be elected members by the people and that sort of thing. So it is about the descendants of George Washington, who is King George I. So I enjoyed this book. It follows 4 different perspectives. It follows the next in line for the throne. Her name is Beatrice. She's gonna be like the first like queen, besides like queen consort. She's gonna be like the queen instead of it passing down to her brother. And then it also follows her younger sister, Princess Samantha, who constantly like feels like she's the spare and that she doesn't really matter in terms of the royal family. And so she's a little bit of a wild child. Also follows Nina, who's a commoner, however, became best friends with Princess Samantha purely by chance. And then there is Daphne, who is the ex-girlfriend of Prince Jefferson. And she's very ambitious and very much wants to be a princess and is trying to do whatever it takes to win Jefferson back. There's a lot of like romance in terms of this book. I personally kind of wish it didn't focus as much on the romance aspect, but if that's something that you're looking for, I would definitely recommend this one. I personally really liked the sort of political intrigue of it. Lastly, for Hamilton, if you really like the sort of like cleverness of the verses in all the music, I recommend The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. So it's very cleverly done. It's about a girl named Xiomara who's like, she's questioning her faith, and this is like something that she's grown up in, and it's like very like ingrained in her. Like her mother is very religious. She is questioning just a lot of things about her like upbringing. She ends up finding the slam poetry club at her school. So this book is like written from Xiomara's perspective, like her diary, like she's writing out these poems, but it's also telling her story. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's very clever and very well done. And if you like that sort of like verse rap style aspect of Hamilton, check that one out. Moving on to the next musical. If you are a basic bitch like me and just from the very first trumpet solo fell in love with Hadestown, I have quite a few recommendations. If you like Hadestown because of the Greek god mythology aspect, let me recommend to you Percy Jackson. No, seriously, if you haven't read Percy Jackson, I highly recommend them. The first series is very, very much middle grade. It does read a lot younger, but as the books proceed and as you get further into the series and like the series that follows the initial Lightning Thief series, it definitely matures. These are super fun, simple reads, and they are so well written. If you don't know what Percy Jackson is, first of all, where have you been? But this is about a boy named Percy Jackson who is half god. After years of like being in hiding, he ends up at Camp Half-Blood, which is a camp that is meant for demigods like him. It's so good. It's such an interesting world, and I highly recommend these ones if you haven't read them yet. Another book that I think is very similar to just the vibe of Hadestown, I recommend Lovely War by Julie Berry. This book has dual timelines. First, we have in World War II, Aphrodite is caught by her husband Hephaestus with her lover Ares. In order to kind of like explain things to her husband, she tells a story about these two sets of lovers during World War I. So you have the Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Ares timeline, and then you have the World War I timeline. And the like big theme of this is why love and war are drawn together. I mean, you have Aphrodite, who's the goddess of love, and Ares, who's the god of war. It's such an interesting concept, and the sort of like, again, historical fiction aspect of it is really cool, and I think definitely has those same sort of Hadestown vibes. If you're looking for specifically a Hades and Persephone type story, first of all, this isn't a book. However, if you go on the free app called Webtoons, this is not sponsored by the way, but if Webtoons wants to sponsor me, hit a girl up. There is a really, really great story called Lore of Olympus. I know Lore of Olympus is like all over the place, and so I know a lot of people have heard of it already, but if you haven't by chance, it's a really cool like webcomic that tells the story of Hades and Persephone, and the artist has finished the first season, so the first season is like completely bingeable, and they're going to be starting up season 2 next month, I believe in August. So first of all, check that out. It's a really, really cool series and I'm very emotionally invested in it. Another book that I haven't read, however, it's on my TBR and it looks very interesting. It's A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So this is very much again, a sort of Hades and Persephone retelling. So Persephone is the goddess of spring, but she's not very good at it. So she decides to disguise herself and she decides to go live in the mortal realm as a mortal journalist. Enter Hades, who has built a gambling empire in the mortal realm. And he's known for making deals and bets that are just impossible to do. Persephone ends up in a bet that she can create life in the underworld. And of course, that's a little bit of a problem because she's not very good at creating life. Also, feelings start to happen, as of course they do. Now, if you're looking for a just general, like, making deals with demons type book, I suggest The Hearts We Sold by Emily Lloyd Jones. So in this world, demons exist and they are not uncommon and people often make deals with them. Dee ends up making a deal with a demon by giving him her heart in exchange for a better home life. Her home life is garbage. This demon also assigns tasks to the teenagers that he has made deals with. So there's this whole like crew of heartless teenagers, which sounds terrible, but not heartless in the way that they don't have feelings, but heartless in the way that they literally don't have a heart in their body. And of course, she finds herself falling for one of her fellow heartless people. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. For lack of a better phrase, it's kind of heartbreaking at the end. Another book that I feel like I just need to mention because, again, it involves demons and like monsters and also music. If you like this sort of like music saves us aspect of Hadestown, I mean, this one doesn't necessarily have music anyway. The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. I've talked about this book before in my, what was it? I think my Nope Trope book tag, so check that out. This Savage Song is so good. In the same vein of The Hearts We Sold, not to spoil anything, but it doesn't end with like all sunshine and rainbows. I'm just gonna throw that one out there. The Savage Song takes place in a dystopian sort of world where people's bad deeds turn into monsters. So the city of Verity is split up into two sectors. There is the north, I believe, and the south. In the north sector, people pay to be protected from the monsters. So there is like the head of the north sector and you have to like pay him. It's very like mobster type deal. And if you aren't able to pay, then you're out of luck. In the south sector, it is a lot more like militarized in a way where they fight the monsters. They don't try and make deals and bargains with the monsters. There's an enemies to lovers aspect in it. And one of the coolest parts, in my opinion, and also like disturbing, is one of the monsters, if they play music, they are able to steal your soul if you are determined to have an unpure soul, aka you've killed someone, even if that was in self-defense, unfortunately. The Monsters of Verity duology is like one of my favorite duologies, so I highly recommend that one. Moving on from Hadestown, the last musical that I'm going to be recommending books for is Les Miserables. Les Mis. If you don't know what Les Mis is, oh man, should I have been doing this for all of them? Whatever. So watch the movie. Aaron Tveit's in it. I love him. I love that man. If you love the story of Les Mis, there are two books that are actually like based on Les Mis. I mean, first of all, there's Les Mis, which you could read by Victor Hugo. There is Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I have not read the book because the book is so long and I don't have that attention span. But if you're really ambitious, read the book. But there's two books that are based on Les Mis. The first one is Sky Without Stars by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell. This is a sci-fi retelling of Les Mis. If you're familiar with the story of Les Mis, it picks up towards like the second half. So after Jean Valjean already has Cosette and they are like hiding in Paris. Follows three perspectives. It follows the like Cosette perspective, the Eponine perspective, and the Marius perspective. Again, a very cool just sci-fi retelling of Les Mis. The other one is Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This one like just came out like last month. I haven't read it yet, but it is a book that I've had my eye on. However, the title is very misleading because anyone who has seen Hunchback knows that the Court of Miracles is a Hunchback of Notre Dame thing, not a Les Mis thing. I was in a production of Hunchback, so I'm very passionate about this point. I don't get why he would name it after, and it's another Victor Hugo thing. I mean, guess maybe that's why. Hunchback is by Victor Hugo, right? Anyway, it involves a lot more of a sort of like mob base type deal, and Eponine is again more of like a main character. Man, us book nerds, we love Eponine. We're all about the girl who got unrequited love. If you like Les Mis for the French Revolution aspect, although the revolution that happens in Les Mis isn't like the actual like French Revolution. But if you like that aspect of it, first of all, there is Enchantée by Gita Trelease. It's about this girl named Camille who uses petty magic in order to get money from the aristocracy by like playing cards and tricking them. And she has to like make a choice between like the aristocracy and democracy and like if she wants to fight on the side of the revolution. Anyway, it's pretty cool. And it's a really neat like historical fantasy book. Another one that takes place sort of like French Revolutionary time. It's called Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. This book has dual timelines. So the first one is Andy, who's about to be expelled by her like prestige private school, so she ends up having to go with her father to Paris. She finds the diary of our second timeline. Alexandrine is maybe how the name is pronounced. Anyway, Alexandrine dreams of being an actress on the stage, but she ends up getting caught up in the revolution. Andy becomes like very obsessed over this diary, and after a trip to the Paris catacombs, things become very real for her. So that concludes my book recommendations based on musicals you might like. Again, I am very interested in making this a series, so if you have musical suggestions and want me to recommend books based on your favorite musical, go ahead and leave your musical in the comments. Also, if you have book recommendations that are like similar to these musicals that you would like to recommend to me, let me know. I'm always down for more book recommendations. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, feel free to press subscribe. I make new videos every Monday and Thursday, and next week, if you're watching this like when it's post, I'm going to be posting maybe 5 videos because it's the reading rush, so why not just be completely overly ambitious and try and make a reading vlog for every day. I might go crazy, who knows? It'll be a good time, so stick around and see. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Until next time, bye!